Hello and welcome back to the Bat Catalogue. Sorry it's been so long. I intended to kind of stretch this out a little bit until my copy of Batman The Long Halloween Compact Comics Edition arrived. But it arrived today and we still have two to go through before we reach that. So we will begin today talking about Prey, which is a story which is kind of meant to be a sequel to Batman Year One, I think. Like, I don't know if that's the outright intention, but it certainly reads that way. From the pages of Legends of the Dark Knight comes a story from Doug Moench and Paul Gulacki. Gulacki? I don't know how to pronounce that name, I'm sorry. Gulacy? Anyway, they are following in the footsteps of Frank Miller's reimagination of the world of Batman as this dark and gritty place, and I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did. I love this book. This is fantastic, by the way. There are so many Batman stories out there that you hear about, especially early Batman stories, obviously Year One, everything by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale with like The Long Halloween and stuff that we're going to get to. I've heard about Year Two and Year Three as well. I never hear about Prey. I never hear this mentioned. I've never heard of this writer and this artist, and I think they did a really good job of continuing. It's not like a direct continuation of Year One, but it continues to build upon the themes and the general vibes, and it's so great. Prey is an early Batman story, and to kind of like indicate just how early it is in this story, we do see the kind of construction of the Batmobile and the introduction of the bat signal as well. And this story primarily deals with the distrust that people have of Batman as this vigilante figure, primarily in the form of Hugo Strange, who is this psychiatrist who goes on a talk show and talks about the kind of man that Batman must be. He's kind of demystifying the Dark Knight, who is already taking on this kind of mythological kind of a figure in the eyes of the public, and he's going, no, this is a man. This is a man who clearly has gone through some traumatic event due to crime, and he is therefore fighting crime. And I gotta say, in this story, Hugo Strange gets very close to figuring out the identity of Batman. He even, I mean, we're gonna start talking about spoilers, just so you're aware. He even actually makes the guess Bruce Wayne, and I love that because I've always thought when you know, reading Batman stories and watching the cartoons and stuff, that it's not the most impossible thing to put together, right? Like, the means of, first of all, of like all the Wayne tech he uses, and that he must be really rich and he must have the time to be able to do this kind of thing. It must be like his sole mission, so he must be someone who doesn't really need an income, and he must have a reason for doing it as well, you know? Like, it's not impossible to put together the secret identity of a Batman. There can't be that many rich, eccentric billionaires in Gotham. And this story deals with that, and what I think is really fun about Hugo Strange as a villain is he is actually an accomplished psychiatrist. Like, a lot of the things he says about Bruce Wayne are right. A lot of them are also wrong. Like, he doesn't have a split personality or anything like that. And I think it's really funny when Bruce is watching this on the TV, and when he says about the split personality, he just goes, no. And Alfred's like, what is it, sir? And he's like, no, nothing, Alfred. He's just like, no, he's got that wrong. It's fun because every now and again you will get a writer have a take on Batman as like this person of poor mental health and certain mental health issues, and perhaps that's true in some ways. As you can see, he clearly has some element of PTSD regarding the murder of his parents, but sometimes people take it a bit far and in directions which I feel like harm the character a little bit, and I feel like this is the perfect almost answer to that, of like, well, yeah, he's not the most mentally sound person, but he's also of a good heart and he's doing good things, and that is what is most important. In this story, we see Hugo Strange create the Night Scourge out of this hateful cop who he doesn't quite brainwash, he hypnotizes him, but as Hugo Strange says, you can't really hypnotize anyone to do something that they wouldn't in their hearts do. Like, anything that is too antithetical to their beliefs, they wouldn't do. And I don't know much about hypnotism. I don't know much about hypnotism, but I'm assuming that's the truth. And I really like that angle of like, well, no, he's not doing something that he absolutely would never do, but he is still under Doctor Strange's influence. And we see him slowly start to turn the police force against Batman, both through just like the things he says on TV and eventually framing him for the kidnapping of the mayor's daughter. And we see Gordon pushed into this situation where he has to like head up this task force to try and capture Batman, even though he knows that Batman is innocent. And we see the strain that puts on him and how he's trying to do the right thing within the lines of the stuff that he has to do anyway. And talking about a continuation from Batman Year One, we do have this swapping of perspectives between Batman and Gordon in terms of like we get to see their internal monologues, and it's even written in that annoyingly hard to read cursive like it was last time too. Now something I want to start doing is showing you the manner in which I read these graphic novels, and this one physically. DC Comics Legend of Batman Eaglemoss Collections. This is what I've been talking about. They arrive in these little hardbacks, and they've got these spines as well, which when you put them all together form a picture, which is quite nice. And yeah, the art is cool. Obviously it's like 80s era art. It's not quite as intricate, I suppose, detailed as we get nowadays in modern comics, but I really do like how it looks on the page. It's pretty cool. They're not one of the more famous creative teams, I suppose, telling this story, but it was nice to look at. And look, there's the Batmobile as well that I was telling you about. So yeah, this is something I think I'm going to do in future videos. While we're here, by the way, one of my favorite parts of this story is when Night Scourge says, "Better, I'm better than him. Hugo Strange said so. I'm better than Batman." And Batman's just like, prove it. This story also features cameos from Catwoman, and it's funny how we see her like she's doing her thing, she's robbing the rich as she likes to do, and she keeps crossing paths with Batman. And at one point the news says, "Catwoman, Batman's accomplice in crime," and she's like, accomplice? They think I'm his accomplice? And it's not really integral or crucial to the story. You know, it fits in thematically with the whole public image of Batman thing, but I'm glad that they included it because it is just kind of fun. And there is a fun interaction towards the end as well where she helps him out in battle because he helped her out. Just a fun little thing which kind of sets up their future relationship, I think. I also enjoyed seeing continued doubt from Alfred. He's clearly still not sold. I think it's quite sad that when we see the news report on the Night Scourge and his war on crime and how it's more brutal, we see Alfred watching the news and saying to himself, "See, violence begets violence, Master Bruce." Even he, Batman's closest ally, is taken in with the manipulation of the media, and I think it's almost prescient in a way that we see the news being shown as this unreliable source of information, not necessarily because of the news itself, but because of a way that people manipulate events in order to propel an unhealthy narrative about things that they don't like for unfair reasons, I suppose. I also think, and we are going to be delving into full spoilers here, but I also think that Hugo Strange's end is very fitting. We see him wanting to become Batman himself. He puts on the costume, and because of that he is shot because he, through his manipulations of everything, he got the police to have a shoot to kill order on Batman, and because he is dressed as Batman, he's the one who gets shot. Literally on the page where it happened, I laughed and I was like, that's just poetic. That is the definition of poetic justice. Of course, it does all shake out well in the end. We see Gordon basically go, "Here, Mayor, your daughter is saved and Batman's the one who saved her. He was being framed." And the mayor goes, "Huh. We're just gonna put that task force to bed." I do think that maybe these days a more cynical take on that scene might be more deserving, but I can see it taking place a few decades ago, perhaps. It was very satisfying to see someone in a position of power and authority go, "Oh, I was being lied to about this man. Well, we should stop going after him then." Like, that's wish fulfillment at this point. But yeah, I do like how in general Batman mythology, early Batman has to deal with cops wanting to shoot him dead and not trusting him, and him having to convince them that they're on the same side. And this was a very fun story for that. Honestly, exceeded expectations. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 on my spreadsheet of what I thought about particular stories, and I was not expecting to do that, because you look at Prey and you look at the lesser known names, unless I'm just an imbecile and I should have heard of these people, let me know, and you go, this is probably just going to be like a not a filler read, but you know what I mean, not one of the ones that sticks out to you. And who knows, when all is said and done, maybe it will fade into the background a little bit. But for now, absolutely charmed and had a good time with it. Would recommend. And yeah, it's a good read. Next up is the first of the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale stuff, Haunted Night. And I gotta say, we are entering... first of all, some of the most critically acclaimed Batman stories, which is exciting, but we are entering spooky Batman stories right in the middle of October, which is not planned, but very, very welcome. So as long as I've got this right, it is Haunted Night, followed by The Long Halloween, followed by Dark Victory, followed by The Man Who Laughs and the Killing Joke, which is surprising to me, because there are a lot of Batman comics ahead of this, in the Eagle Moss chronology, at least, where I feel like... you know, that's a story surrounding Jason Todd, and I feel like it's still Dick Grayson who's going to be Robin in later stories, so we'll see how that shakes out, but I get a feeling that the Eagle Moss chronology might be a little scuffed in that regard. I have been looking a little harder at my Legend of Batman books and the chronology of the Eagle Moss stuff, and knowing that there was a gap in terms of, for some reason, not including The Long Halloween, I've been keeping an eye out for more gaps, and I noticed something. There is a book called The House of Hush, and there is a book called The Heart of Hush. I think I said that in the wrong way round. I think I just said book 3 and book 2 there. But those are sequels to the very famous story Batman Hush, and you know what is not included in Eagle Moss's Legend of Batman collection? Hush, the original Hush story. It's just not there. I've checked to see if it's presented under a different name. Luckily, I listed all of the collected stories. You can see my spreadsheet in the description below. But I listed all of like the collected issues in each book, because they're presented on the backs of each book, and it's just not there. Hush just isn't part of his collection. I know that after finishing the quote-unquote chronology, Eagle Moss decided to then continue doing it, and I remember I stopped my subscription at that point, because at that point I realized I wasn't reading them, and I was looking forward to it ending so that I could have the full set. And when I realized that it was never going to be a full set, full stop, I didn't know much about comics back then. I just stopped my subscription, and so maybe later on they did include The Long Halloween and Hush, because I've seen there's like a wiki page with... In fact, you know what? I'm gonna go check. Yeah, no, weirdly, even in their later months, and in their, you know, extra tier subscriber special months, they never included Hush, they never included The Long Halloween. I do see that there is now a company, I've been wanting to talk about this, there is now a company called Fan Home, which seems to have picked up these books and is now doing their own monthly thing. And one of the first months they did was Hush. Issue/volume 4 and 5 are Hush, and then 6 and 7 is The Long Halloween. So maybe this is something that was, you know, a long gripe from people who had the Eagle Moss stuff. Either way, there is a compact comic edition of Hush, so maybe I will pick up Hush at some point in that way and read that. Also, while we're here, more miscellaneous Christian picking up comics news. I do know, because I've been evangelizing the DC Compact Comics now for a while, I do know that Marvel have their own thing called Marvel Premium Editions, which are a little bigger in terms of page size, a little bit more expensive, but also have a little bit better quality paper, and they also have like forewords and introductions and bonus cover variants at the back and stuff like that. And so I have ordered Daredevil Born Again, because I love Daredevil, and that's the most like important seminal Daredevil story, and I've never read it. I was about to read it on Marvel Unlimited, and then I stopped myself and went, wait a minute, I've got an order that I need to round up to get free delivery on. I might as well do that. So yeah, that's coming too. Don't know when I'm going to read it though. Also, I'm reading Wonder Woman Earth 1, which is the final DC Compact comic I ordered in my original free. Okay, I'm done waffling. Cheers for checking this video out. Go read Batman Prey. It's, I think, underrated. I'll do some Googling before I put that in the title. Maybe I'd just not heard of it. And I will catch you in whatever I make next.